Hi. Who needs a celebrant? What would you use them for? And why would I need one? I'm Dennis Brennan, celebrant and wedding whisperer. When you find someone and you love them and you wish to enter with them into marriage, a celebrant becomes fairly important in that process. One of the things we don't always realise is that marriage is a legal and a constitutional relationship. According to Australian law, it is part of our constitution. It tells us what marriage is. And because it is constitutional, people who can marry need to be appointed by our Australian law system, by our government. So in Australia, that is often ministers of religion, celebrants, and some other people, sometimes to do with the armed services, etc. So partially I need a celebrant of some kind because that is the law in Australia. It tells me how I can become married. So if I need a celebrant, what choices do I have in my wedding? Well, the law says a few things. The law says the celebrant has to tell you and use exact wording as to why they're allowed to marry you. And the law says when it comes to vows, you do need to say, my lawful wedded husband and lawful wedded wife. These things are written into the Constitution. But beyond that, there are many things you can change. The choices you have when it comes to your wedding. You may have been to some weddings and you can tell there are all sorts of different readings used in a wedding ceremony, and really that's for you to make some choice. There's all sorts of different songs from a range of singers, from country and western through to rock. And again, it's a choice you make about your wedding ceremony. There's participation by others, and in some wedding ceremonies parents would have a participation, godparents if that's been a tradition of the family. Where there are children already in the relationship, they can often participate in the wedding. There's a whole host of ways you can involve other people who are significant to you in your wedding ceremony. Again, they're choices you make. And then there's all sorts of symbols and symbolic actions. You may have been to some weddings where people pass around the rings to the family before they're placed on each other's fingers. And the notion is that each member of the family holds and kind of inserts their love into the ring. People have released doves, people have done all sorts of things. Actions that speak to them and hopefully speak to their guests about the magnificent significance of the love and the relationship into which they are entering. And again, they're your choices. And perhaps finally in this list, but there are many other things we could think of, there's the style and the feel of the ceremony. You know, is it very heavy, traditional, formal? Is it light? Is there comedy, or is comedy going to be a little bit out of place for who you are? All really significant questions for us to think through. And how do you do all that? Well, with this good celebrant, you do it together. And in many, many ways, that is the role of the celebrant with you, to help you meet the legal requirement, which is a must. There are no choices. But then beyond that, to help you build together a ceremony that reflects you, your love for each other, and the friends and family who will gather on that day. I'm Dennis Brennan, a celebrant and a wedding whisperer.